Hey everybody, it's Friday. You know what that means?
No, what does that mean?
That means I get to make videos and teach.
You're not teaching, you're just helping me out. You're just sitting here.
No, I'm teaching. I think I'm teaching. We're gonna play with dice today.
We're not playing with dice. We're doing a simulation of rolling dice.
I'd rather play with dice.
I imagine you'd like to play with all kinds of things, being a cat, but we're going to instead worry about simulation a little bit, dipping our toes into simulation.
Dipping our paws?
Dipping our toes. We saw in class this rand between function. There's another function we should just talk about, the rand function. I mentioned the rand between lets you set any range from any number to any number for integers. The rand does a uniform continuous random variable between 0 and 1. It's not really truly continuous because we only have 14 to 21 decimals of precision. And in the continuous mathematical world, of course, you've got everything. But that's when we're going to use a lot more when we get deeper into simulation, because once you have a uniform 0, 1, you can use mathematical things to convert that to almost any other distribution that you want. So you can kind of see some of the rand function when you start typing. But today we're going to just use the rand between. We talked about how the F9 key generates a recalculate. And in class, we went this far. We did the recalculate macro recording. So if we watch this and I run this, if I run this macro, it's the same as hitting the F9 key. It's not real exciting otherwise. But you may notice when you open this file, I also left this first loop thing in that we messed around with in class. That's because we're going to take this loop logic and apply it to this simulation problem. So first, even though we're not starting big-time simulation for a while, what is the simulation setup? We've kind of got three chunks to a simulation model. We create what I call a single trial of some uncertain event. In this case, it's the roll of a pair of dice. It's the uncertain event. It could be the return of the stock market. It could be the unit sales. It could be the average price. All kinds of things that, whether they're uncertain, we can model them this way. So we put first the single trial. Then we're going to slide over and generate multiple trials. That's the real simulation. Out in the real world, we'll do 500 to 1,000 to sometimes thousands, but usually 500 to 1,000 is plenty. So that's what's going to happen. So we got the single trial, we got the many trials, and then we have statistical analysis of the many trials. So it's three chunks to a simulation. Build the one-time model, generate multiple iterations of that model, do an analysis of that output. So we've got the one model here. And we're going to take this looping logic and generate, I'll just do 10 for now so we can see it. That's what it says on the PowerPoint anyway. So I'm going to take this loop concept, and I told you don't necessarily need to write a whole lot of code. You can copy. So it says one time. It's not really what's happening. I'm going to change my comment. To reflect what's really happening. This is going to simulate multiple rolls of a pair of dice. So yes, we still select the correct sheet. I'm putting the calculate in here. For I equals 1 to 10, recalculate the sheet. Nothing in this code creates that single trial. The code assumes that trial's out there. So we calculate, and the challenge said we're going to roll it 10 times, display the results, and then compute and display the average. Well, I'm going to have place to store the sum of the rolls of the die. This should look pretty similar to things we've done before. It would help if I spelled the word rolls correctly. So we do the recalculate. Oops. And then we pull out of cells 4-2, which is B7, 4 rows, 2 columns. We pull the value out and add that to it. Now I said I want to also display these results. So I got to decide where. Probably we'll do column 5. Now look at that. This is going to display. It's going to recalculate. This is forcing the equivalent of an F9 to make the random result recalculate. I'm going to pull the random result and start summing them up, and I'm going to display the random result over here. Let's just run this part and see if it's working. I mentioned in the class you want to test a piece at a time. So there's the rolls of my pair. I probably should put some labels on here. So I'll set my labels up. When I initialize the sum, I probably should go ahead, if I want to call it, I'll put a heading on F. Oop, I put it in the wrong place. Wasn't paying attention to my own spreadsheet. I probably should clear the other stuff out. We talked about that before. So I'm going to, as part of my initialization, as I think through these things, we want to, well, I forgot to say where I'm selecting first. I started typing the action and forgot to type where it goes. Columns, I'll just do E and F. E, F, select. Clear it out. So I'm going to initialize the sum. I'm going to clear out where things are going to go. Put a label at the top. I do select the sheet already. Although if I'm going to be picky about computer programming protocol, I should dimension things before I do that. Let's run it. See how it's working. Okay. I'm getting things where I want them. If I wanted to format this, I could format it in the code. I could format it ahead of time because the code won't change it. So let's do that real quickly. Let's center these. And you'll notice, of course, I clear everything. So let's see what happens. Oh, I lost my formatting. When I clear everything, I clear everything. So if I really care, I do have to format that in my code. I'll leave that as a challenge for you. Remember, if I do want this centered, and I don't know how to do it, I could record a macro, center it, look at the code, and insert that code into my program. But I'm not going to do it here. So we clear this stuff out, select the sheet, do the initial label. I'm going to add another label, a little more output. And you'll see why in a minute. Typing a few things, but I will explain what I'm doing. I'll run it, then I'll explain it. I mentioned that a simulation model consists of, first, the one trial model, second, the multiple trials, and then we'll do the analysis. Well, the multiple trials, sometimes you want to label which trials. If I'm doing 500 or 1,000 or however many, there's only 10 here, you say, well, here's the simulation that we did. So the 7th simulation, we got a 9. The 9th simulation, we got a 9. The 4th simulation, we got a 7. So if you want to go back and analyze, you can say what happened at each simulation. So how did I get that? Well, I added another label. I could have called it trial if I want to be very generic about a simulation. This is the 1st through 10th trials, and then I label what actually happens. So down here, it's not hard to write the value in. Since I'm doing the loop from 1 to 10, it merely puts that value. I haven't done the statistics yet, so I'll do that next. Oh. Couple of things I did here. Let's run it and see what happens, and then I'll explain again what I did. I'm going to slide this over a little more, and slide this way a little more. I didn't do an average in the sub. I did create a place to sum my rolls up, but I didn't create any place to store the average. When I did the average calculation, I put it straight into the spreadsheet. That's acceptable, although some people would not like it because they want to see more of the stuff in the program. That's kind of up to you. And I have hard-coded how many trials I want to do. So first, I went through this a little bit fast. I haven't done any formatting yet. I mentioned before, you try the formatting, take a break, see if you can get yours this far. Then we're going to come back and get rid of this hard-coded problem. So what if I want to do 100 rolls or 50 rolls or only 5 rolls? So take a break, you get that, and then we'll look at it. Hope you have yours working. I made a couple of changes while you were away. I went and recorded the macro to do two things: to center these columns and to auto-fit them. I didn't auto-fit this one yet, so maybe you may or may not want to. I didn't do that. If you did that, your code's not going to look exactly like mine. I cleaned it up a little bit. You're going to get this big width thing, but it works. You can copy it into your code and it will work fine. So these are what I added, and then I did realize I had a small mistake in my code. If you look at what I had before the break, this said do columns E and F and clear them out. Once I started putting these rolls 1 through 10 or whatever they are, I realized, oh, I need to clear D. So that was a change. So change that in your code if you didn't catch that error yourself. So we select the columns, select the sheet, columns, clear it out. I center them, I auto-fit them. Although the auto-fit should probably come after I write things out, because right now they're empty. I'm going to autofit an empty column. So I'm going to move that down by my other change. Because I also added what I often put at the end of a program is just throw the cursor up in cell A1. So now if you run this, you can kind of see what it's doing. The part I didn't do while you were awake, so I told you we're going to do it here, is what if I want to do more than 10 trials? Well, since this one is rolling a dice, I'll call it number of rolls instead of number of trials. And since we're initializing things, I'll read this somewhere off the sheet. So I'll put it in my setup. I'll start with 10 because that's what we're used to. That's a new input. If I want to play the input game, this is the only real input to the model. These are parameters. And this is an output. So, number of rolls, we've got to read it off the sheet. And again, we've got two different ways. I'm going to go ahead and use the range since that doesn't ever move. I mentioned in class the other day that they both work fine. The cells XY notation and the range notation. But one way to think of the range notation is think of it kind of like a fixed or locked cell reference. If that's never going to move anywhere in the sheet, go ahead and use range. But down here, I'm using the cells notation because this is going to vary from place to place. So now when I run this, it's going to look pretty much the same. Doing it 10 times. But what if I want 50? Oops, I forgot to change my code. Which is why you test. I should pause it and make you go fix the code yourself, but I won't be that mean. I'll just point out what I missed. I pulled the number of rolls out of the sheet into my program and forgot to take out where I had hard-coded 10 rolls. When I introduced the for loop the other day, I said it goes from 1 to whatever. It doesn't have to start at 1. It doesn't have to go by ones. Well, the whatever could be a variable. So I want to go to the number of rolls, and I want to divide by the number of rolls. Now let's see if it works. Yep, there's 50 rolls, and they averaged out to 7.1. I could obviously do a lot more statistics on it, but it still shows you kind of the structure of any simulation model. I'm going to say it over and over. The single trial, the multiple simulations of that trial, and the statistical analysis. Now, any statistical analysis doesn't have to be in your VBA code. Once I have my 50 or my 100 or my 500 outputs, I can put anything I want over here. The standard deviation. Of column E. I can do a histogram. I can do all kinds of things, and this isn't in the code. So now when I go and run the code, when I do the clear, it's going to happen fast, so watch. That's not going to go away. And I don't write it out, but it changes because the data changed. So work on that. See if you can get this running. Like I said, Monday we'll take off with some new material.